Hello everyone, this is Yeeflex and welcome back to another Yeeflex Outdoors video. This is going to be a special version of the Yeeflex Outdoors video because this trip is going to highlight my fishing experience on my vacation to North and South Carolina. And for this video specifically, it will be when I was fishing in South Carolina. So it's been a while since I've made a video in general. And the reason for that has been I've been really busy at my job working. Work has been keeping me super busy where I don't even have time to make a lot of videos and go out fishing and such like that. But luckily, pretty recently, within the end of October to the beginning of November, I was able to take a trip out to North and South Carolina. The first part of the trip was in North Carolina. Second part of the trip was in South Carolina, and this was the first time I was in the southern part of the United States. And this video is going to highlight my experience fishing in South Carolina. So pretty much my knowledge of fishing in South Carolina comes from the YouTuber High Adventure Videos and another YouTuber named Elias V Fishing. I think Elias V Fishing fishes a lot in North Carolina, and even though I was in North Carolina, I didn't really fish there. But in South Carolina, where High Adventure Videos is, he fishes a lot in South Carolina. So the fish I kind of knew of were redfish or red drum, the speckled trout, sheep's head, and black drum. So in the trip and South Carolina, I fished on a couple different docks in the inlet areas against the Atlantic Ocean. In these inlets, the docks, like, they were pretty they're basically like the low country swamps in South Carolina, where like you have these kind of little inlet areas, I almost call them like little estuary areas where you can just kind of throw your bait in and see what's there. I had no clue what kind of fish were even in this area, so any fish I was catching like was a brand new experience to me. And so the first day of fishing, because we did 2 days of fishing. The first day we did more serious fishing. The second day we only did like 4 or 5 hours of fishing. The first day of fishing, we tried one dock in the inlet area, and the inlet itself wasn't too far. I'd say the dock, we were standing on the dock and maybe like 10 feet out, 10 feet across from us, straight across from us, was kind of the grass area and a small little inlet to another kind of slough area or little cove. And basically the grass was all around there. And the first cast I put in the water, there were some fish bites. And on this trip as well, I went with my buddy Paper Wolf, who you might have seen me make music with. This was really his first experience catching fish. So he was actually the first one to cast the bait into the water, and we were using shrimp. And I swear, I've never seen this before. He casted the bait straight into the water, and right when it hit the water, the fish were like nibbling and biting already, and I think he got like a bite straight away. But we didn't expect the bite to be so fast, and I think he lost his bait like after the first cast. But so those fish were pretty smart in how they took the shrimp off the hook. And basically, I think a few casts after that, he was able to hook a couple fish because we were using a two kind of leader sabiki rig, so it had 2 kind of hooks on it. And he was the only one that day, and actually on the whole trip, that hooked 2 fish on one sabiki rig. And the fish that I looked up what the name was, I think he hooked 2 silver perches. This was the first time I'd ever seen a silver perch. So I think he hooked those first two, and then he hooked another silver perch a little bit later. And then I think when I casted, I almost caught uh, I think a whiting. I couldn't really tell because I hooked it. It was on there, and then it got off closer to the surface. I saw the underbelly of the fish. It looked kind of like a whiting fish, but again, I wasn't too familiar because I hadn't caught any fish from South Carolina yet. So those were kind of the fish we tried to catch at the first dock, and then we ended up moving to the second dock, closer down the ways towards the actual inlet that's closer to the ocean. And there we had a better variety of fish. Mind you, the weather that day I believe was 75 degrees, so it was relatively warm in South Carolina. And when we got to the second spot, I was the one that caught most of the fish in the second spot, at the second spot or second dock in the inlet area. The inlet itself was a little bit wider. I'd say maybe it was maybe about 12 feet, so maybe an extra 2 or 3 inches, like 12 to 13 feet from the dock all the way straight across to the grass. So the species of fish that I caught were, I believe, silver perch first. Oh no, actually, the first fish I caught was a whiting, and then after that, I caught various different silver perches on on the two rig sabiki rig, two hook sabiki rig, I better say. So I think I caught about 4 silver perch in general, but one of the silver perch I caught on a lure, and this lure was the most unique lure I think I've seen so far. And I kind of wish I bought one of those lures to use where I am here in the Bay Area, to use for fishing, because it seems very much like a minnow. You'll see in the picture here that uh, I caught a silver perch, but the lure itself has like different joints on it, and it kind of articulates. So in the water, it looks like a real fish swimming through the water. And the nice thing about this lure as well is that it has a treble hook more towards the middle of the lure itself. Now, the advantage of that is when you cast the lure, the treble hook does not hook onto the snap swivel, because a lot of lures that I normally use that have one treble hook in the front, one treble hook in the back, the front treble hook normally hooks onto the snap swivel and gets all tangled up every single time I cast it. But this lure had a little bit of weight to it and never got snagged up in the snap swivel. So that was probably one of the best things about it, is that it never got snagged. And then the articulating feature was just crazy, because I was just thinking that would be so great for bass fishing, because it looked like a live minnow just swimming through the water. But unfortunately, I didn't pick one of those up when I was in South Carolina, so that was unfortunate. But so after catching those silver perch, the next fish that I caught was a black drum. Now on this trip, one of the two fish I really wanted to catch were a sheep's head, because I knew what that was, and a redfish or a red drum. Those were the two fish I really wanted to try and catch in the Carolinas, and if I caught one or both of them, that would make my trip. The black drum I really did not expect to catch, because I've seen it in the videos, but like actually catching one was pretty cool. Unfortunately, it was a smaller black drum, so we let it go because of regulation reasons. I believe the black drums either had to be 14 or 15 inches minimum length before you can keep it. So I threw that one back. Then I caught a blue striped grunt. I believe it's called. This is what I found via the name online. I don't know if that is the correct name. If it's not the correct name, you can definitely correct me because I was not very familiar with any of the South Carolina fish while catching them and looking it up after the fact. This was the closest pattern I could see to a fish um, on a chart compared to the picture I took of this fish. But then I also caught a croaker after that, and then the fish that pretty much topped off like the whole trip was the redfish or the red drum. And it's it was a really good fight on that fish. Unfortunately, the red drum was, I think, only 12 and a half or 13 inches. So it was not a legal red drum or redfish, because I know the red drums and redfish have a slot size between like 15 inches and like 20 something inches. I want to say like 25. I could be incorrect, but like it's 20 something. But I knew the minimum at least was like 15. This one was 13 inches, so unfortunately it was too small. But judging by the picture, you could see it had such awesome coloring, like the spot on the tail, but then the blue on the tail, on the back tail as well. And then just the overall fight of the little red drum was pretty great. The fight resembled a lot of a striper for me because I've caught multiple stripers in the past, so this was the most comparable in terms of fights to a striper for this red drum, in terms of those two fish being pretty similar in the way you catch them. So I was hoping to try, one of these fish, like eating wise, because I've never eaten any South Carolina or North Carolina fish, because I've never eaten any fish really from the Atlantic Ocean that I caught, because I didn't know what these species were in the first place. So overall, on the first day of fishing, it was really fun. I mean, I think I fished pretty much all day. The first spot we fished for about 3 hours, and then we moved to the second spot a little bit later in the day, and we fished there for at least like 5 hours. So I did about a good 8-hour day of fishing and caught like multiple species of fish. I think the most common species was the silver perch that I caught, but the first day was like the multi-species day, which was really awesome. So I think the first day was really good. Mind you, it was like 70 degrees. The 2 days later, we fished again for a shorter amount of time in both locations, but for a shorter amount of time at each. So mind you, there was a cold front that moved in the day after the first fishing trip. There was a cold front that moved in, and the second day of fishing was about 62 degrees at the highest. And man, the fishing was totally different. At the first spot, like we went back to the first dock, we threw out shrimp again, and I'll tell a funny story about the shrimp a little bit later. But we threw out some shrimp as bait and the lure, and the shrimp that I casted out was the one that caught a silver perch again at the first place. And then we didn't get any other real serious bites, just a bunch of nibbles. And then later on, we moved on to the second spot. I think after 2 hours of fishing at the first dock, we went to the other dock for maybe 2 or 3 hours. And again, there I caught a silver perch on shrimp. But my buddy Paper Wolf was actually fishing on that same dock, and I think he hooked something pretty dang good, but he was not super experienced fishing. So when he hooked on to the fish, he didn't really know how to play the fish, and the fish got the line all tangled up around a rock or something and broke off because his rod was bending. So I don't really know what he hooked onto, but it looked like he hooked onto a pretty good fish. At least initially he said he felt something, but then it eventually broke off on a rock or something. So unfortunately, that's kind of what happened. And for the second day, I think I was the only one that caught fish, and it was like two silver perch, one at the first location, one at the second location. And the fishing was totally different because I think the cold weather really did affect the fish bite and just the fish eating and how they were being active, because it seemed like to me they were more cold-blooded animals. So when it's warmer, they get more active, but when it's colder, they get a little more lethargic and don't really want to eat. So that was just an observation I noticed on this trip um, to fishing in South Carolina. But the funny observation as well that I had while fishing was that these fish in South Carolina, at least where we were fishing at, they only wanted shrimp. And the reason why I think that is because the feed is normally shrimp. In those kind of inlet areas, like a lot of shrimp might reside in there. So a lot of the fish chase the shrimp and hunt the shrimp. But it's really interesting because we had, whole kind of normal eating shrimps, but we used some for bait because we bought some at a bait shop. They weren't the bait shrimps, which apparently are smaller shrimps that you hook them whole. These are more like the eater kind of shrimps, but you can just like cut them in half or cut them in thirds, if depending on the size of them, and put them on a hook and throw them in the water. And it's funny because we also had kind of like cut bait squid, and we would put the squid and the shrimp on the hook at the same time. And those fish were pretty dang smart. They would suck the squid off the hook, but leave, no, sorry. They would suck the shrimp off the hook, but leave the squid. And that in itself was pretty interesting because these fish were pretty smart. I think they were like outsmarting me the whole time, like I was fishing. So, it was a pretty interesting observation to find that they were just hitting the shrimp and they knew how to take the shrimp off the hook and leave the squid behind. Like almost every time they did that, every once in a while, like there would be a fish that would also eat the squid, but most of the time you put the shrimp and the squid on the same hook and they just suck the shrimp off. They're pretty ingenious. They're outsmarting me. I just figured I was feeding the fish half the time because they knew how to suck the shrimp off the hook. So um, overall, this was like an incredibly great experience fishing in South Carolina. This was a totally new experience for me. So it was awesome, really just getting a full new experience with different fish I've never even seen before or caught before. And it just brought a new perspective to fishing in general because I normally don't fish saltwater. I normally fish freshwater, but this was the first time I really caught the most fish out of saltwater. So even though on this trip I wasn't able to catch a keeper game fish to eat because that was one of the things I was hoping to try a actual southern fish from the Atlantic Ocean because I figured it would taste pretty good because I've heard some good things about redfish or red drum and sheepshead and possibly black drum. But unfortunately this trip I wasn't able to catch any keeper size saltwater fish from South Carolina. But maybe if I'm back there in the future for a vacation or something, maybe I'll go try and catch a legal size fish, whether it be a sheep's head, redfish, red drum, or black drum, or something along those lines. I would really be curious what they taste like compared to the fish out here on the West Coast. So overall, just a really good fishing experience. I had the most fun fishing that I've had in a long time because the bite, when you throw the bait in, the bite was so instantaneous. It just made fishing so much more fun because normally I'm used to waiting around for the fish to just either nibble or just bite, but these fish are just so instantaneous. Like once you throw the bait in, it's like 30 seconds to a minute they're already nibbling on it. So there was always constant action pretty much going on for the most part while fishing in South Carolina. So the variety of species was really awesome. The timely bites and nibbles and consistent action was really cool. And just the overall experience of fishing in the ocean inlet areas of South Carolina and kind of in the Atlantic Ocean was just pretty awesome. So overall, really great trip. If you happen to be in the South Carolina area, highly recommend fishing for these fish, especially if you're from the West Coast and you happen to be out there. These are totally different fish than anything I fish for here in the West Coast. So um, it's a really fun experience. I can tell you, I had so much fun doing it while fishing out in South Carolina. And if I had the chance to do it again, I probably would do it, but it won't be for a while for me if I were to do it again. So overall, a really good trip. This was kind of a special video because of the fact that I wasn't in my home kind of native area fishing, but in more future videos I'll probably be back in the Bay Area fishing and going to like my local places around here doing more freshwater fishing of what I traditionally do. So this was just kind of a nice fun new experience for me, and overall I hope you guys enjoyed the video. And if you get a chance to go to South Carolina to fish, definitely do it. If not, think about it for the future. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video, and leave a like, comment, subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you in the next video. All right, everyone, have a good one. Peace.